Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. The hour of convening has arrived and the Senate will now come to order. I'd like to ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. The chair is struggling. I've got a predetermined list of superlatives to refer to you as, and I can't find one that adequately fits your talent. The chair recognizes the wise and all-powerful chairman of the Rules Committee.
Not too sure about that, but Mr. President, it's a wonderful day here at our state capitol. We appreciate your leadership and guidance, and today is going to be a historic day here in the Senate chambers. Moment in time, 1948. Our own guy from Savannah, Clarence Thomas, was born and later became the longest-serving Supreme Court justice currently. The journal's been read, found to be correct, and it's an awful big one, too.
Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. I would invite all senators who have bills or resolutions to introduce to please bring them to the Senate Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 532 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state government so as to provide for the Department of Economic Development in conjunction with the Department of Public Health.
Government oversight.
Senate Bill 533 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for a new charter for the city of Fort Valley.
State and local government.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendations. House Bill 901 do pass by substitute. House Bill 807 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1037 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted. Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 521 do pass by substitute. House Bill 918 do pass. House Bill 1125 do pass. Respectfully submitted. Senator Watson of the 1st District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 759 do pass. House Bill 877 do pass. House Bill 1020 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted. Senator Albers of the 56th District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Retirement has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 664 do pass. Respectfully submitted. Senator Black of the 8th District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 890 do pass. Senate Resolution 948 do pass. Senate Resolution 959 do pass. Senate Resolution 981 do pass. Senate Resolution 1007 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 167 do pass by substitute. House Bill 426 do pass by substitute. House Bill 838 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 879 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 1218 do pass. House Bill 1198 do pass. House Bill 1197 do pass. Senate Bill 502 do pass. House Bill 1193, do pass. House Bill 1170, do pass. Senate Bill 425, do pass. House Bill 1119, do pass. House Bill 1193, do pass. House Bill 1196, do pass. House Bill 1191, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District Chair. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 1102, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District Chair. Mr. President, that completes the order.
The Senate will stand at ease for a few minutes. I take that back. We've got second readers. Mr. Secretary, will you read bills and resolutions for the second time?
Senate Resolution 890 by Senator James of the 35th and others. Senate Zero Waste Study Committee, create. Senate Resolution 948 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others. Senate Coin-Operated Amusement Machine Study Committee, create. Senate Resolution 959 by Senator Thompson of the 14th. Senate Systemic Inequalities Study Committee, create. Senate Resolution 981 by Senator Butler of the 55th. Senate Study Committee on Surgical Smoke Evacuation Systems, create. Senate Resolution 1007 by Senator Cowser of the 46th. Senate Law Enforcement Reform Study Committee, create. House Bill 167 by Representative Taylor of the 173rd and others. Insurance employees of licensed property and casualty insurers to adjust residential property insurance claims of $1,000 or less without obtaining an adjuster license, allow. House Bill 426 by Representative Stration of the 104th and others. Criminal procedure, imposition of punishment for crimes involving bias or prejudice, revised criteria. House Bill 521 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others. Professions and businesses, temporary licenses for dentists licensed in other states to provide dental care to indigent populations in this state, authorize. House Bill 664 by Representative Fleming of the 121st and others. Georgia Judicial Retirement System, membership for certain persons employed in certain full-time positions requiring admission to the State Bar of Georgia as a condition of employment, require. House Bill 759 by Representative Parrish of the 158th and others. Controlled substances, Schedule 4, change certain provisions. House Bill 807 by Representative Montahan of the 17th and others. Revenue and taxation, allow businesses to provide affidavits of certified public accountants in lieu of tax returns. House Bill 838 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st and others. Law enforcement officers and agencies, Office of Public Safety Officer Support, change the name. House Bill 877 by Representative Hogan of the 179th and others. Motor vehicles, standards for issuance of a Georgia certificate of title for certain motor vehicles, provide. House Bill 879 by Representative Harrell of the 106th and others. Alcoholic beverages, legislative intent of the General Assembly to exercise strict regulatory control over the three-tier system, provide. House Bill 901 by Representative Chiokas of the 138th and others. Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, power to make loan commitments and loans to local governments and non-government agencies for projects that permanently protect land and water, provide. House Bill 918 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and others. Pharmacies, various provisions related to the practice of pharmacy, revise. House Bill 1020 by Representative Gravely of the 67th and others. Motor vehicles, license suspension for conviction of drug-related offenses, provide. House Bill 1037 by Representative Dollar of the 45th and others. Georgia Entertainment Industry Investment Act, move certain sound recordings from qualified production activities to production expenditures. House Bill 1102 by Representative Rutledge of the 109th and others. Revised Homestead Option Sales and Use Tax Act of 2020, enact. House Bill 1125 by Representative Kelly of the 16th and others. Lacey's Law, enact. Mr. President, that completes the order.
The Senate will stand in recess for a few minutes while members make their way to the chamber or to the area of the chamber. Is that right? Time for a morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Any motions to excuse? I'm going to give it a minute here, make sure everybody has time to ask their neighbor. All right, no motions to excuse. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
I ask unanimous consent that we suspend the morning roll call.
Majority leader has asked for unanimous consent to dispense with the morning roll call. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the morning roll call is dispensed with. It's now time for our morning devotional. And I'd ask that all senators take your seats. All senators take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Also ask the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. Chair would like to recognize our senator from the 14th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. If everyone will please rise and help me honoring an American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now our Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Good morning, everyone. It truly is my pleasure to bring the chaplain of the day today. David Franklin was born and raised in Alabama and married his sweetheart, Dana, 36 years ago. Today they have 5 children, 5 grandchildren. He pastors for over 26 years in 3 states, including serving as the pastor of Mabel White in Macon, with nearly 3,000 members and a TV ministry of over 20,000 people. Now that's impressive, but while many in the ministry spent their time building their flocks and increasing their income, there are few that truly surrender to the Lord's will. In 2007, David walked away from that to accept a role as the associational minister for Bartow Baptist Association, where he'd have to raise funds to support the ministry. He started a program called Splash, mobilizing teens and adults from all denominations, all walks of life, multicultural, to serve the community through construction and ministry projects. Had over 4,000 students, 3,000 adults, and 1,000 projects. In 2011 and 2013, when Northwest Georgia was ravaged by tornadoes, David became the point person for recovery, bringing together a community not separated by race, not separated by denomination, but brought together as a community. Both Congress and our General Assembly recognized him for his efforts. He served as the Georgia National Day of Prayer Coordinator for over 4 years. He was recognized with the Leading Edge Award for New Literacy Initiative for helping starting a program called Read to Grow in our community. Had over 500 adult volunteers helping the reading program proficiency of 3rd graders. Bartow County received a Ready Grant recently, which is the first in Georgia in over 10 years, all attributed to the efforts of David Franklin and his close people that's working with him. Now, all that's impressive, but what's most important to me is David's heart. He's one of my closest friends, and I've been honored to work with him strengthening Bartow County's multicultural faith community. He works in all churches. On any given Sunday, you can find him preaching in a black church, an Asian church, a Baptist church, or anyone that will invite him to come and speak. He's taken groups with me to D.C. to help them understand the history of America and the importance of being involved in a political process. Please join me in giving my friend a warm welcome as he brings the word today.
Thank you, Senator Thompson and Lieutenant Governor Duncan and all you senators. It's an honor to be here and appreciate your service to our state and ultimately to our nation. And Senator Thompson, just want to say on behalf of all the ministers in Bartow County, just a special thank you because partnering together to work to build a better Bartow is something that we've been working on a long time, and you've been absolutely awesome in that. Guys, in just this brief moment, I want to take you back to a story. It's over 3,000 years old. It's a true story about when there was conflict between Syria and the Israelites. And the king of Syria was incredibly frustrated because every time he tried to do something militarily, the Israelites knew what he was going to do. And he asked his advisors, and they said, well, they've got this prophet that talks to God, and he knows exactly what you're going to do. And so the king of Syria decided, okay, I've got to take him out. And so through his intel, he found out that Elisha the prophet was down in Dothan. So they went down to Dothan, got there late at night. Next morning, Elisha's servant walked out early in the morning, the Bible tells us in 2 Kings, and he looked and he saw surrounding the city and surrounding him was an army of horses and chariots and men. And he went back in and he said to Elisha, "Alas, master, what shall we do?" He was panicked because he knew his life was threatened. That was the question that's been asked this year in my world with ministers more than any other question. Because of a pandemic and now social unrest, people keep asking, what shall we do? Had a group of young pastors on a Zoom call, and we were talking about, as churches shut down, what shall we do? And they were looking to me for answers because I think they thought that I was around in 1917 in the Spanish flu and pandemic. Well, Elisha, the man of God, understood what needed to be done. And he simply prayed and he said, Lord, open his eyes that he could see. Reality. You know, guys, that's what we've in Bartow County have been asking God, show us what reality is, not from our perspective, but from heaven's perspective. Not what man can see, but what do you see in heaven? How do we walk these days of churches shutting down and a nation shutting down, all kinds of stuff? We call it the COVID-19 moment, when all of a sudden God has to enlighten us. And when Elisha prayed and God opened the servant's eyes, all of a sudden he saw not just the army of the Syrians, but God's army of chariots of fire and angels. And he thought that Elijah was about to see the army of God. He was going to pray and see the army of God wipe the Syrians out. But Elijah prayed something different. As the Syrians came down to attack Elisha, he simply prayed, Lord, would you blind them? And that's exactly what happened. So Elisha walks out of the house he was staying in, walks over to the leaders of the Syrian army and says, come on, guys, I'll lead you to where you need to go. And took him to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel looks at this whole army and they're all blind. And he says, what should I do with them, Elisha? Should I kill them? And Elisha said, no. He said, I've asked God about that. What you need to do is you need to feed them and bless them and then send them on their way. So the king of Israel took the servant who had a word from God, and he fed them, set a big banquet for them, fed them, blessed them, sent them on their way. And then the Bible records this, and there was no more conflict from then on between the Syrians and the Israelites. And so I stopped by today just to challenge you to do something that Elijah taught us to do, and that's to pray. What he did was he prayed, and he made sure he had God's mind on a situation and not man's mind. We keep praying in Bartow County. We gather, matter of fact, this coming Saturday, all the ministers in Bartow County across denominational and racial lines will climb Pound Mountain right next to the interstate and look over Bartow County and plead with God to show us how do we lead in this time. We've never been through 2020. We've never been through a pandemic with social unrest. We've not been through this, so we've got to have heaven's perspective and God's wisdom versus our own. When the government called me in 2011 and told me a tornado went through Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that's so famous, and went through North Georgia, went in Bartow County, 21 and a half miles the tornado did, and our emergency management guy resigned that night. As we struggled and floundered on Saturday, they called me in and said, you're in charge. And I said, in charge of what? They said, you're in charge of all the recovery efforts. Well, I promise you the first thing I did was not say, okay, some man tell me what to do. We had a prayer meeting. All the ministers had a prayer meeting and said, God help us. And God was incredibly gracious. Found out about third grade reading proficiency and the importance of literacy. And we didn't just go say, what's the best? We prayed and said, God, you got to give us wisdom. And all of a sudden, it just came to Read to Grow came out of that. That's what we're doing now, and I want to challenge you as the leaders in the state of Georgia. Don't ask for your own wisdom, ask for God's wisdom, God's perspective. Matter of fact, James says this, Book of James says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let he ask. God will give it to you. But let me throw a little twist in there. He won't give it to you if you make your plans and then go ask him to bless it. What he says is, ask me, and I'll give you my plans, and that'll help you to lead like you're supposed to. Guys, prayerlessness is our declaration of independence from God. But humble people always pray. People that know they don't have the answer. In COVID-19, we're wrestling with churches and can't meet and all this kind of stuff. Now re-engaging in churches, social distancing. We got to have God's wisdom on all of this kind of stuff. We've been praying in Bartow County, and matter of fact, Senator Thompson was part of a meeting with kind of behind the scenes, closed doors between black pastors and white pastors, and say, how do we lead in this moment? God just gave us this. Listen to each other and listen to God. Learn from each other and learn from God. Love, we got to love each other and then lead. God put us where we are in our positions for such a time as this. But we've got to humbly ask him and pray and say, God, we don't have the answers, but you do. And we're asking you for wisdom, for guidance, for leadership. We just said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of Georgia. Wisdom is part of that. I'm challenging all of us to pray and ask God for wisdom in these days and be found praying and asking for it. Let me pray. Father, I pray blessings upon this chamber and upon the men and women who serve here. From Lieutenant Governor Duncan all across this room. Lord, I pray for wisdom, for divine understanding of what's heaven's perspective and not just man's perspective. Lord, give us a heart to be humble. We know, Lord, there's two places you dwell, in a high and a lofty place. You inhabit eternity, heaven itself, according to Isaiah 57. But you dwell with the lowly and the contrite. Lord, give us a heart of humility and help us to listen and to learn from each other and from you and to love each other. And then, Lord, I pray your blessings upon this group as they lead. And Father, I pray that Georgia would be the absolute example of how a state can function across all kinds of lines, not just denominational lines and racial lines, Republican, Democrat, all the different lines that we have. May we be the most blessed state in America because we're the most prayed for state. And I pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Are there any unanimous consents? Chair sees none. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair recognizes the senator from the 5th for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, Mr. President and member of the Senate. I may be new to this chamber, but not new to politics in Georgia. It took me almost 4 decades to get here. I'm not here to play political games. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve my people. I'm deeply honored to represent one of the most diverse state Senate districts in the country, and definitely the most diverse district in the state of Georgia. My district consists of people from all 50 states, people from more than 100 different countries, speak more than 100 different languages. Minorities of all walks of life lives in my district. These are my people, and I'm proud to represent them. My district is what Georgia will look like decades from now. I also represent one of the most underserved areas of Gwinnett County. My people voted for me to make sure they have a voice at the legislature. I'm their voice. I'm here to speak for them. I'm here to work for them. Their voices deserve to be heard. My people deserve the same opportunity as yours. When you bring your local bills that affect your people, we never question you because it's the right thing to do. We give you that respect. But unfortunately, when I wanted to bring my local bill to the floor, co-sponsored by the majority of my county delegation, I did not get the same respect, especially when the bill deals with almost 100% of my district's population and has nothing to do with you at all. Not allowing my people to vote on a local referendum is beyond the dignity of this body, and quite frankly, it is a voter suppression. I want my people to know, while you are fighting outside, I'll continue to fight inside until your voice is heard. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. I just wanted to take a moment to thank this body for coming together on some tough issues. You know, it's not always easy when we have our own passion in our heart for certain topics, but it reminded me of being a Master Sergeant in the Air Force, where I've had to work with people from different backgrounds, different opinions, different orientations, and bring them together in one commonality so that we can work together and move forward for the mission. And all of us have been under a lot of pressure. We've had late nights. I've been in here from 7 a.m. in the morning to 9:30 at night, and we all have had to make sacrifices. Matter of fact, for the first time, I missed my favorite TV show, The Last OG. But I just want to thank all of y'all for coming together as a body and moving forward in a positive manner. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. And also want to thank the leadership of our Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? The chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? Chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bill on the local consent calendar?
There are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Questions on the passage of the bills on the consent calendar? All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. All senators, please make your way to the chamber and vote your machine. Have all senators voted? We got another one coming down the hall. Like I said, I feel like I'm the maitre d' seating people. I heard that. Have all senators voted your machine? Mr. Secretary, please lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 43, the nays are 1. The bills on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. For what purpose does the senator from the 7th rise?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to reconsider Senate Bill 425 on the local calendar.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 425 by Senator Harper of the 7th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to reconstitute the Ocilla-Irwin County Industrial Development Authority and for other purposes.
Senator from the 7th like to speak to the motion.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I just appreciate your support on this. We've already passed this bill. This is just, and I didn't catch it on the local calendar this morning. That's my fault. So I just need your support. No need in sending it to the House. We're just going to put it back on the table and send it back to SLOGO. So I appreciate your yes vote.
Senator from the 7th has moved that we reconsider Senate Bill 425. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so. Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th.
Mr. President, I'd ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 425 be recommitted to SLOGO.
Senator from the 7th has asked that Senate Bill 425 be recommitted to SLOGO. Is there objection? It is so. All right, we'll stand at ease for a few minutes and come back to business in just a few minutes. Stand at ease.